Hi, we're back. Chapter 13. And I stood on the sand of the shore, and I saw a wild beast rise up out of the sea. Now, the wild beast would be Satan, or his satanic person he goes into at the end of time. And the sea would be represent a Christian church. Well, let's see. If all the Christians just got raptured up at the second woe, then this is the evil church, which I swear to you is the Catholic Church, and all of the ones ecumenical churches that are left on the earth. As soon as we're raptured at the second woe, then this church rises up in power. You already see her rising now, the Catholic Church going around. She's been here to America and accepted the golden cup made with people's jewels and gold that they sent in to have the cup made specially for the Pope. I have a video on that too. And having 10 horns and 7 heads. Now, the heads are the 7 hills on that the Vatican sits in Israel, and 10 horns are the 10. Now, remember, horns are trumpets and are voices, so these are 10 voices out of the nations that come together. And give obeisance to the devil. And the wild beast which I saw was like a leopard, and his feet were like the feet of a bear, and his mouth was like the mouth of a lion. And then the dragon gave him his power and his throne and great authority. And one of the heads was as though mortally wounded, but all the deadly wound was healed, and all the world wondered about the wild beast. This is not talking about some men being shot in the head and coming back from death. This is not talking about Pope John being rising from the dead out of his casket after everybody's going praying to him. And this is not talking about some body coming back from the dead. This is talking about this Catholic church, this pagan Rome that has risen up again to be a rich and powerful power in the end time. And you can see that has already started happening. And his the wounding has healed. And they worshiped the dragon because he had given power to the wild beast, saying, "Who can prevail against him and fight him? Who can fight the churches that are going to band together and all their richness in this end time?" And there was given to him a mouth, and he might utter boastful things and blasphemies, and power was given to him to make war for 42 months. So 42 months is 3.5 years, and that's where the preachers get this 3.5 years at the end of time. And the power was given to this church to make war. Well, who are they making war with, if not those Christians that did not make the rapture and were not taken up? And he opened his mouth in blasphemy against God. Well, they've been doing that for a long time, to blaspheme his name and his dwelling place and those who dwell in heaven. So now they're mad because a lot of people are missing. And they know what happened because they saw these others go up to heaven in their sight. And power was given to him over every tribe and kindred and tongue and nation. And it was given to him to make war with the saints and to overcome them. Now, this chapter is not just the end time. This chapter is the chapter 12 and 13 is the whole thing about the Catholic Church. It's the white horse riding. So you can take chapter 12 and chapter 13 and put it back there under the white horse. See? Because this church has been riding throughout the ages. And the reason it's placed here is because of chapter 12 where it was talking about Jesus and the end time, so they didn't know where to put it. So it's put here at the end, but it goes back to the white horse rider. Now, and he's riding throughout time, and his ride culminates over here with us being caught up, but it's still riding even after we're caught up, because it's going to take the rest of the world unaware as it rises into great power to stop Armageddon and what's been going on. They're going to rise up to stop this. Let's stop war. Let's make peace. And when they say peace and safety, all hell breaks loose. And power was given to him over all the nations that are left, and all who dwell upon the earth shall worship him, even those whose names are not written in the book of life, the life of the Lamb slain from the foundation of the world. So not only will people who call themselves Christian worship the Pope and this church, those that are even unsaved do. And we can see that around the world. All the other religious leaders, even to apostate Christian and even Pentecostals, have gone and bowed down and kissed the ring of Pope Benedict when they had all the preachers from America come through and basically worship him. Among those were Ken Copeland and others whom I name in other videos. He says, if you have an ear, and you know most people do have born with ears, have an ear, listen to what he's saying here. He who leads into captivity shall go into captivity. So he's telling us that the Catholic Church won't last forever. It's going to be taken captive itself. He who kills with the sword must be killed with the sword. Here's the patience and the faith of the saints. And I behold another wild beast. Okay. Another wild beast comes up out of the earth, and he had two horns like a lamb, and he spoke like a dragon. And all the power of the first wild beast before him was exercised by him, and he caused the earth and those that dwell in it to worship the first beast whose deadly wound was healed. So in other words, there is a person coming up who will be the last man Antichrist, that when the church is gone, that these false churches will rise up, and this person will be the head of it, and he will cause the deadly wound that the Catholic Church received or the pagan Rome received, to come back into pagan Rome power. And this is a revival of paganism mixed with Christianity, and we have been calling that Chrislam. So basically Islam and false Christianity together. And I beheld another wild beast coming up, and he had two horns like a lamb. So he comes in peacefully, and he spoke as a dragon, because he wants to now make the earth safe place for you to be if you're still here. And I beheld another wild beast come in, and that was the two horns with the lamb, and he spoke as a dragon. And all the power of the first beast before him was exercised by him, and he caused the earth and those that dwell in to worship the first beast. Now, we know who that is. Then the deadly wound was healed. And he performed great wonders to such an extent that he could even make fire come down from heaven on the earth in the sight of men. And we know that they're being able to do that now with holograms and different things. But here's the thing. Throughout the history of the Catholic Church, there have been more and more appearances of the Virgin Mary apparition. And I teach that this Virgin Mary apparition is Satan in the air. He actually comes into her and causes her to be a light being. I don't think it's just a hologram. I believe it is actually Satan displaying his power in the air. Now, because it says in verse 14, in verse 13, And he performed great wonders to such an extent that he could even make fire come down from heaven on earth in the sight of men, beguiling those who dwell on the earth, and to make an image to the wild beast who was wounded by the sword and yet lived. Okay, Satan was actually the one wounded by the sword when Jesus rose from the dead. He never expected that to happen. He thought he had all the world in his hands. So he made an image to himself, himself being a light being and being a light, the power of the air. He made himself into the Virgin Mary apparition, because we know that the Virgin Mary died. She never ascended to heaven, because there has been no assumption or ascension to heaven since Jesus left and took those people until he comes back again. And she will be in that same resurrection to heaven that we will be. And so will the disciples, because they were left on earth and have been um, under the altar. And she, the Catholic Church, had power to give life to the image of the wild beast. So they have, in effect, been telling people to worship Mary. Else, why would all these people be going to these grottos in Yugoslavia and all the places in the world where they go to see these shrines and these grottos where they have Mary statues that bleed and weep and I even went to see the bleeding Virgin Mary statue that was in somebody's yard in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, that was described in newspapers all around the world. And as I went to see that, there was this statue in somebody's front yard, and actually they were Vietnamese. And Vietnamese people do worship statues and believe in all kinds of weird miracles, and that, you know, eat food sacrificed to idols, and so do people who worship Mary. They are eating food sacrificed to idols. So, because by virtue of their worship of her. And around this statue, you could see that there was red coming out of her eyes on the statue, but it was dried like painting. But the people had pictures on the side of their house of her when the blood was real blood coming out of her eyes, and they verified it and all that. But it's false. It's false miracles. Satan can do wonders. He can do false miracles, and that's what this was. And they had prayer benches around the statue so people could go there and bow down to this statue and pray. Okay, I took a little break again. Satan does not want me to finish this this book of Revelation or even this chapter, but I'm going to forge on through. Now, we left off with the beast, and all the power of the first beast before him was exercised by him. So this particular person who is over the new one world order, one world church, will exercise the same power that the devil had in the first pagan Pharisaical Catholic Church. And we know that that's what it is because we've been studying it throughout, and the Word of God tells us exactly who it is. And he performed great wonders to such an extent that he could make fire come down. And we were talking about the Virgin Mary apparitions. See, there it goes again. He just does not want me to say that. Hold on. He's not going to stop because we're getting into something very important here. To cause all those who would not worship the image of the wild beast to be killed. Now, back in the Dark Ages, when the Catholic Church killed 68 million Jews and true believing Christians, they were compelled to join the Catholic Church. You had to be a member of the Catholic Church, and you had to worship the Pope because Satan was in the popes all down through the ages. Now he is not only in the popes, he is in the Virgin Mary Apparitions. And I believe in the end, what's going to happen is it did in Jesus's day, is this Virgin Mary apparition is going to say, behold. So we were talking about the Virgin Mary apparition. And so let's go back and read verse 15. And he had power to give life to the image of the wild beast. So the image of the wild beast is the Virgin Mary apparition. She's the power of the air. He is Satan, and to cause all those who would not worship the image of the wild beast to be killed. I believe in the end, this Virgin Mary statue is going to do the same thing like God did out of heaven. God said over Jesus as he was being baptized, believe him. This is my beloved son. So the Catholic Church and the Virgin Mary apparition and the false worship situation of all these churches joining together will do the same thing. It's a copycat of the first of Jesus. So Mary will look down from heaven in the sight of people watching and thousands of crowd and on television more than likely and say, behold, this is my beloved son, worship him. And she will give her power over to her son, who is right now, I believe who he is an archbishop, a German archbishop in the Catholic Church, in the Vatican, who is German. He is Pope Benedict's right-hand man and Pope Francis's right-hand man. And so he has two popes with whom he tells what to do and manages everything they do. So he's already in power. He's just not been exposed to the world yet, and he will not be exposed to the world until the second woe when the Christian church is gone. So hopefully I won't be around to know whether you see him or not if you're still here. Now, what's going to happen? And he compelled all, both small and rich and poor, great free men and slaves, to receive a mark on their right hand or on their brows, so that no man might buy or sell unless he who had the mark of the name of the beast or the code number of his name. Now, in verse 18 says, here is wisdom. Let him who has understanding decipher the code number of the beast, for it is the code number of the name of a man, and his number is 666. Now, we know that Nero Caesar's name added up to those numbers, and we know that most popes, many popes, or all popes, or the title vicarius filii Dei adds up to 666. So it's telling us the number of the man who is the pope is 666. But he is the head of the church. Excuse me, who. Now, we need to go back and do a word study on buying and selling. But verse 15 through 18 tells us a message. And he who had power to give life to the image of the wild beast and to cause all those who would not worship the image of the wild beast to be killed. Now, just as it was back in the Inquisition time, they wanted people to bow down to the Virgin Mary statue. This was the time when Nostradamus lived, and he was a first-hand witness to it. Because if they did not worship Mary, they would, the Virgin Mary apparition began, and then, way before that actually, but she was more prevalent then. And the statues were a big thing to worship. And Nostradamus came against that church, and they chased him because they wanted to kill him, but he got away, and praise God, the Lord saved him and protected him, and he went on to write the book that he was supposed to write. Um, So they were killing people, 68 million Christians and Jews back then, because they would not bow down to Mary or to the statues or worship the Pope. It's going to be the same way in our day. And I do believe at some point that the Virgin Mary is going to lean down out of the sky, come down out of the sky, and say, worship my son, um, just like the God did over Jesus when he said, behold, my beloved son, worship him. He was saying, worship him alone. Don't worship Mary. Don't worship any other thing but my son, worship him. But it's going to happen the same way. Mary's going to say to this false pope or head of the world government, behold, worship him, he's my son. And they're going to cause the world to worship the Pope, the Catholic Church, Mary, and this one man who will be, or who is, a German Catholic archbishop who sits at the right hand of Pope Benedict and who sits at the right hand of Pope Francis. Now, I hope not to be here when that happens, so I won't know whether this, what my belief comes true or not, but you may. So if you see what I'm telling you come to pass, you will know that it was ordained of God for you to hear it. I believe that this man is Archbishop Georg Ganswein, and his last name in Hebrew means pig in the garden, and we attach the of Eden because we know that it's talking about the Garden of Eden. The pig in the garden was Satan in the serpent in the Garden of Eden, and we know that the Jews don't eat pork, and they the blood of the pig was on the altar in the first destruction of the temple, and we know that the pig is just a vicious animal to the Jews, and it's antichrist and anathema with them. So Georg Ganswein, Archbishop Georg Ganswein, you can look him up. He is a handsome person, but he is a demonic reptilian spirit. So now, so this and he compelled all, both small and great, and rich and poor, and freemen, and slaves, to receive a mark on their right hands or on their brows. In Judaism, they have a bracelet. Orthodox wear a bracelet on their hand, and they put the prophylactic thing on their forehead with scriptures in it. So this is how they see it, as being on their hand and their forehead. So the Bible has made an analogy to that. And as Catholics through the centuries of worship, they have used their right hand to touch their forehead, their brow, may form a cross down to their head, heart, and across the shoulders, which forms actually the Kabbalah tree of life. And I have a teaching separate on that, that is from a Christian point of view and not an evil point of view. But they have marked themselves with their hand. This is a mark. The right hand, this is a mark right here. They've marked themselves, and they do that to themselves. They mark themselves so that no man might buy or sell unless he had the mark of the name of the beast of the. So this is something that comes out of the Catholic Church, this mark of buying and selling. It's not a UPC code or a chip in your hand or any of that. And I don't even believe they're going to have time to do that and implement that after all this comes about. All they're going to say is, will you worship the Pope? Will you be in the Catholic Church? Will you worship the Virgin Mary? And if you don't, you will be killed. Again, it's the coming together of Catholicism and Islamic churches, all Chrislam, because the same Virgin Mary apparition that is worshipped in the Catholic Church is the same Fatima woman that is worshipped in the Islamic Church. So, and parables are used in both, so they have many things in common. It says, "Here is wisdom. Let him who has understanding decipher the code, the number of the beast, for it is the code number of the name of a man, and his number is 666." And we know that to be a cipher of Nero Caesar, and also a Vicarius Filii Dei, which means comes to 666. So it's telling us, we know it's the Catholic Church, and we know it is the Pope who stands in the stead of Jesus, and so this is the false church and the false worship system. So if you don't stay in this church and you don't bow down to Mary and all, and you run for the hills, you might make it through this time after the church is gone. But it will be a slaughterhouse on earth, I can tell you. And then we will go into chapter 14, and from there on out, I will show you how the Lord stops this false church from killing the rest of the Christians that are left on earth. Thank you. Will rejoin me in chapter 14 shortly. Thank you.